key point about this is that the spaces that are white used to be windows into the lobby of the collections before this wing was built, when it was located on the third floor. So in 1982, when this wing of the library was built, this was deemed an important sculpture to preserve and a landmark of the History of Science collection, so it needed to remain in the lobby of the History of Science collection. But at that earlier time, for a decade of students and visitors, this door was the entrance to the History of Science collection. So now, when young kids come and I give them a tour of the history of science and technology sampled from the artwork in the screen and pulling out some of the books these images are taken from, I like to tell them this door is a time machine. And if they open the door, they can go to any time and place. And then our books are the time machines that really can take them to the places they want. So it's really fun having that door there. I love it. But as you look at the decorative screen, what I think is the key to its lasting artistic value, the impact it has, is that it was a collaborative effort. It was designed, the artist involved was Joe Taylor, who went on to be one of the founders of the traditions of figurative sculpture here in the central Oklahoma area. So he was an artist in residence at OU. He did many of the sculptures you find on campus, or he taught many of the sculptors who have, like Paul Moore, who have done all these sculptures. So it's linked to the great artistic tradition of OU in figurative sculpture. But it wasn't Joe Taylor alone. The first curator of the History of Science collections, Dwayne Roller, worked with Taylor. The two of them worked for at least a year planning this. And I think it's that collaborative synergy they had that made this so successful as a work of art. So every emblem that they chose to work into the medallions or to the ironwork has turned out to be not only beautiful artistically, but deeply significant in terms of the history of science, engineering, and technology. As an example, above the door you see two horses going in opposite directions, and between the horses are two iron hemispheres that have been bolted together. This is the so-called miracle at Magdeburg, where in the middle 1600s, Otto von Guericke in Magdeburg had perfected the air pump. And so he put those two hemispheres together, evacuated the air, then took the bolts out. Nothing was holding the hemispheres together except the pressure of the atmosphere. And the two horses couldn't pull them apart. Wow. That was a sensational piece of headline news at a time when everyone believed Aristotle, who said nature abhors a vacuum. So what you see embedded in this decorative screen is story after story of significant episodes in the history of science. Here, for example, are Mendel's peas, or off to the left of the door, you can see C1, C2, C3, C6, alternating double bonds. This is benzene and the story of the discovery of the cyclical nature of hydrocarbons. So you can see how a screen like this, with such well-chosen episodes, all of which are represented by books in the climate-controlled vaults on the other side of this wall, these scenes pass on the legacy of what it means to work in science today, not in a mechanical or robotic way or in a predictable way, but as a tradition of creative human endeavor, of passing the torch between resourceful, determined people who for generations have created this thing we know of as modern science. So every one of the little vignettes in this screen has its own story. It is a mural, as you said, in the same sense as murals of, say, the Land Run or Oklahoma history. This is not history like a telephone book compiling dates and who discovered what when. This is history in terms of stories that will inspire true creative intellectual effort.
Wow.